So, welcome to, I think this is our fourth episode of The Light We Hold. For folks that don't know, The Light We Hold was something created by me and Esther from Shaking in My Boots. I'm an individual who takes care of my wife, Trudy, right here, who has advanced Parkinson's, and Esther herself has Parkinson's as well. And on this particular episode, I wanted to start with an opening quote that I wrote a minute ago. And it says, "Illness does not just happen to one person, it happens to everyone who loves them." And with that said, we have a special guest who reached out to Esther and I and said, I think I'd like to talk to you guys about how this Parkinson's illness affects the whole family. And I'll stop there and let you introduce yourself, Jimmy.
Hey everybody, I'm Jimmy Choi, diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's at the age of 27, which is 23 years ago next month.
Oh,
And this is my wife.
I'm Cheryl Choi, wife to Jimmy Choi, the Fox Ninja.
Definitely a ninja, dude. I tell everybody, like, I work with a bunch of doctors, and I told them, hey, I'm going to be working with this guy. Like, that's the ninja dude. I'm like, dude, he's the David Goggins of Parkinson's disease.
Except I don't swear as much.
I cuss a lot. By the way, I actually when I was in the Air Force, I went through pararescue selection. I was a pararescueman. David Goggins was in my selection. So if you've read his book and
Yeah.
he talks about it, going through pararescue selection and not making it, that was my class.
Wow.
So
Oh,
I know him. That dude's, I mean, I only knew him for like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
That dude was the real deal. Like, even back then when we were 19, 20-year-old kids, that was no joke. And then
Yeah.
Esther, tell folks that may not know who you are already, who you be.
yeah. So my name is Esther. I was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's in 2023. I am 51 years old now, which is freaking crazy. And unfortunately, my husband couldn't be here. This weekend is the anniversary of the passing of his sister, who unfortunately passed from colon cancer uh, about 4 weeks before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So 100%. What you were saying, Brent, is so true, not just with Parkinson's, but with any type of illness or trauma. I mean, it doesn't happen to you. It happens to everyone in your universe. And that's a big reason why, I wanted to have these conversations because I'm that person that if something like triggers me, I want to know why, and the as I've grown in the last 3 years since my diagnosis, I felt like in the beginning I tend to like make everything about myself because you're so into what's going on with you physically. And now I realize sort of that I needed to learn more about the other perspective, which is how it's impacting those around us so that I can be a better, partner moving forward. And I have endless questions for all of you. So let's get going.
So I'll kick off with this. Our caregiving journey, or our story together, Trudy was diagnosed within a year or two after we got married. Honestly, like, she was symptomatic when we were dating, and she got pregnant. She had our child, Christian. We have an older child from her first marriage, and I think it was about a year after she delivered Christian that she got the no kidding diagnosis. So for me, this disease being a family affair is really the thing that I like to harp on, is how caregiving for, especially for, in my case, people with Parkinson's, isn't just about my wife's illness. Like, there's a lot of attention on, wow, your wife's got Parkinson's disease, how's she doing, how, and there's a lot of focus on her, and I'm like, hey dude, like, I'm the one taking care of her, and my kid is the one that's growing up with it. And so, and I see, no offense to the influencing community out there, but I used to say this like 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. I go, man, we see a lot of Michael J. Fox in the media and the news. What about his wife? What's she going through? What's her story? And more recently, I read Emma Willis's book about her story as the caregiver to Bruce Willis, and that broke me a little bit. Like, wow, there's finally somebody speaking the other side of this story, which is the us that are the caregivers or the spouses, And then there's a third part of this story, which is the children, you know. And I know, Jimmy, you have children, and I know one of your kids is dealing with some medical issues as well. And then Esther, your kids are young age, and you and I talked about in our one podcast about the children, how they matter too. That, and I think my quote that went a little bit viral was, is if you have young children and you got an illness, and those, if those kids are not in therapy, then you're doing it wrong. And those of us that are caring for folks like you or Trudy with Parkinson's or any debilitating disease or illness, if we're not seeking therapy, then we're doing it wrong, because it broke me. Like, I was broken and got into some really dark places because I wasn't talking to anybody about it, and I was hiding it and holding those emotions. And then more recently, I started being open and honest, and I realized that there's a huge community of people out there that are struggling with being the care partner or caregiver of these folks with illness, in this specific case, Parkinson's disease. And so that was kind of another thought, is like, Parkinson's is not an individual event. Parkinson's is a family event, and if we're not including our family in these conversations, if you are not talking about what your wife is going through, what your husband's going through, and if you're not talking, at least, maybe not publicly if it's not appropriate, but if you're at least not talking with your children about what they're going through, then you're doing it wrong. And I'll just kind of stop there, Jimmy, see what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, Cheryl and I have always believed that our children should never be in the dark. We've raised both of our kids openly, that their dad has Parkinson's ever since they were babies, ever since they were small. We never sugarcoated it, we never hid it. And when I was off, I couldn't play with them, or when I was having issues and I couldn't do anything with them, we told them why, and they understood. So I won't speak for her, but for me, it's always, if I think if my kids grew up knowing that, at least in this household, Parkinson's is a normal thing, they wouldn't feel so not normal when their friends came over. They wouldn't feel like they have to explain anything to their friends. They wouldn't have to feel like they have to, like, the pressure is not on them to have to explain what's going on with me. Right. So that's been my thought and our thought all, since the beginning, and that's how we raised our kids. I don't know if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think that was one of, if anything, with his diagnosis that we agreed upon together, was that we weren't going to hide it from our kids. If you know anything about Jimmy's story, he hid it for the first 7-8 years, and so that was before kids, and knew how hard it was to relate to our families, our parents, our siblings, how difficult that was. And those are people that we were very close with, and we were very isolated, but they still, they lived like 10 minutes away from us, but we felt isolated. So when we had our kids, we didn't want to shield them, or just, I think, sugarcoat what Parkinson's is like. I mean, it's hard to talk about Parkinson's with a toddler, a baby, as they're growing up, but we've definitely adjusted the way, kind of the language is, and it's an ongoing learning opportunity for them. Like, I just remember Mason, our son, asking, "Oh, how come you don't shake when you hold me and daddy does?" So it's those types of questions, and part of, I think, what we have to do is to stay calm and say, like, yeah, that's not a big deal. It'll go away. That's part of what daddy has. It's Parkinson's, but he's still very strong, and he can still hold you up much better than mommy could. So there's nothing wrong. So it's like, it just passes, and it wasn't anything that we hid from him. And he's sort of like, oh, okay, not a big deal. But it's something that I know that not every parent would have to address, from a 3-year-old or 4-year-old question, or like, why does daddy's hand shake? Or, why, like right now, he's got the movements, like, how come you don't have that? And having to explain that, and just making it part of, it's normal. It's creating that normalcy for them, so that they're not tiptoeing away from it. They're not trying to hide it from their friends. I mean, well, plus American, Jimmy went on American Ninja Warrior and he was sort of out and everyone knew about it. But everyone, I think, that's in our orbit has learned a lot about Parkinson's disease. And it's not just an older person's disease, it could be somebody much younger. So I think the young onset has definitely learned a lot from what we're living through that we've kind of come into contact with.
Christian had when our youngest son, when he was younger, same thing. Like mom did well for a few years, and it wasn't until much later that the disease got as bad as it was, and we kind of kept it a secret until we were on that TV show with Montel Williams, and that's when he went back to school after that aired, and other kids came up to him and said, "Hey, I didn't realize it was like that at home," and they didn't have a similar experience with somebody with Parkinson's in their family, but there were other illnesses in their family that they then identified with him. So grieving is grieving, illness is illness. And Trudy, before she got sick, her PhD, her master's degree, she never finished the PhD because of the disease, was in child development and family studies. And one of the things early on that she taught me is we got to keep the kids involved. We got to keep the kids clued in and what's going on and be very honest with them about what's happening. But it's that outer ring of like the other, because especially the junior high school kids, they're little
Yeah.
mean bastards. And Christian just and Mateo, our oldest, just learned to be okay with it and be okay with what was going on. But there's that outer layer of there's bullies. We've had a few experiences where my son was at a Target one time, and she was like kind of where she's at now, a little bit of drooling, a little bit of wiggling, and I think the comment was made like a crackhead or meth head or something, and my son lost it, and that was a traumatic experience for him. But he was this was like a year or so ago, and but earlier when he was like in 10 years old or so, that really bothered him sometimes when he would see comments and make comments, and he's just kind of learned to deal with it.
You told us, I heard a story of yours early on in my diagnosis, Jimmy, about you holding your son and walking down the stairs.
Mhm.
And maybe you want to just like give, like repeat a little bit of it. And then I want to just tell you the impact that that had on me.
Yeah, it's so it was in 2010, so this was roughly about the 7.5, 8 years into my diagnosis already, and I was walking with a cane at the time. I was losing my balance all the time, and I had to use a cane. And I was carrying my son, and he was only 10 months old. And coming down the stairs, and I'm like, I've got the railing, and I've got my son. I don't need my cane. And sure enough, yeah, that was probably the worst decision I could make. But the two of us, I lost my balance, and the two of us went down 10 steps, right? And that was that, I always, when I talk about that moment, I always say that that's probably the biggest moment that caused a change in my attitude in terms of what I needed to do for myself. Because up to that point, it was still all of, heads down into work, trying to advance my career the best I could, even though I was dealing with Parkinson's, and it was hush hush, outside of our immediate family circles. Um, there's a lot of cultural things that come into Parkinson's as well, right? Bringing shame to the family and etc. But that moment, falling down the stairs with my son, it made me think. I mean, I remembered that exact day questioning myself whether or not, do I want to continue down this path, or do I want to actually start to do something about it? Now, still at this point, I had no idea what I was going to do, but something had to change.
Yeah, that story touched me and impacted me so much because I think so much of what happens in the beginning is fear driven, in response to any kind of traumatic experience or, diagnosis. And I was the fear becomes almost disabling in and of itself, right? And a year ago, I fell down the stairs on Christmas Eve, and my son had a friend over, and he saw me, and it scared him, and it scared me. But that was like the takeaway for me was so similar. It's like, what am I going to do to do my best to try and have that not happen again, you know? And I did intensive gait training with
Mhm.
a physical therapist working on my balance. But she said something to me that I thought was so insightful. She said, "We're going to strengthen your hamstrings, for number one, and we're definitely going to work on your balance." But she's like, "You know what you need more than anything is your confidence back."
Mhm.
And that feeling of being steady on your feet, I had lost that because I was so scared of falling again, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it just became like part of a habit of what I do every day to rebuild, that confidence. But when people say like what motivates you, I was listening to another one of your podcasts, and I mean, you unequivocally say your children and your family.
Yeah.
And I just think that's just like a really beautiful thing. All of our journeys are very different, you know, but I do think that maintaining some sense of control in your lifestyle as long as you can is nothing but beneficial for our overall health and our mood and stuff. Because I was never like an exercise person at all. Like but we do what we have to do, and we
Mhm.
find joy and fun. And that's what I think comes across a lot in your online stuff is your humor. And that you don't take yourself too seriously, which I absolutely love. But some people hate, and you must get hate for it because you're online like that too. And I get people all the time in my comments like, I don't know if you saw that post where I inserted a, a video of a seal clapping their
Yeah,
hands.
yeah, I did.
I got so much hate for that. But I do. I feel like a freaking like when I wake up in the morning, I
You
feel like
know,
I'm that trained seal like flapping around.
just like Brent was mentioning it to us before, right? It's haters are gonna hate. People are gonna have their opinions. People are they're gonna say stuff. And yeah, haters are all over the place. Not everyone is going to like what you have to say. I mean, the biggest thing. So I get two of the most hate that I get, right? One is that I am giving people false hope of the things that I do, and the second one are all racist crap. So that has nothing to do with whatever. People just don't like me because of who I am.
I made a video that I got hate from, and it was regarding. So the way it came off was as I was calling out people like you and some of the others that post yourselves exercising, and I forget who the guy was, somebody from overseas. His response, he wasn't offended by it, but other people, on social media, people won't watch the whole damn video and they'll
Yeah.
take portions of it out of context. But it
Mhm.
was me calling out like you folks that are crushing it and how amazing you're doing, and the hope that you're showing folks that are early on the disease that how you can overcome and push through the disease. But I also, because my wife right now has had the disease, I think about the same time frame as you, and she's physically very different than you are. And I was trying to tell folks that are the caregivers of folks with Parkinson's, like, just because you see a dude on Ninja Warrior or another dude doing these amazing box jumps, don't let that discourage you that the one you care for isn't putting out. Like, don't get mad at your loved one for not being able to do that, because the disease is very different for everybody. And I caught shit for that. So, and
And I'm gonna be honest with you. When I did see that video, and that was the reason I reached out to you. That video was the reason that I reached out to you, because I heard what you said, right? And I completely agree with what you said in that video, right? So that's why I felt it was important for me to reach out to you and share the perspective, that hey, not only am I living with Parkinson's, right, but from a caregiving perspective, because I understand where you're coming from, because I am also a caregiver myself. So I live both sides of that coin. So I completely understood where you're coming from. I didn't take anything from it. I just thought that, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something I can add to that conversation. And you know, I always tell people I don't expect people to be a Jimmy Choi, right? Because there are people that does things that I can't do, you know, and they always look at me and says, "Oh, Jimmy, you can do everything, you can do whatever, right? Don't you feel bad that other people can't do it?" I'm like, shit, people can paint things with Parkinson's. I can't paint nothing, you know. Like you think about Parkinson's, people controlling their artwork. Screw that. I can't. There's no way I can. I can't even hang a towel rack without it being crooked, you know. But yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. So Jimmy can do some push-ups on you know on tables and crap like that. But there are other stuff that people with Parkinson's and other stuff that people who are dealing with a chronic condition can do that Jimmy Choi can't do,
Yeah,
right?
you some of the stuff you do, I can't do. Like you're badass. You know, I'm not. You're in better shape than I am, and I appreciate because I started like digging into a lot of your stuff. Oh, you okay? Is you also post videos of your bad days, and you
Hmm.
also
Oh,
post videos of the hard times, and I think that's important to show that. Sorry, she's having a rough spot here.
It's all
That's
good.
okay.
So I'm gonna take her to the couch because she's almost completely off med, and swallowing is a serious problem for her right now. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. I Brett and I talked about that post a lot because I heard from a lot of my friends and followers about that. And I think it's not, I don't know about you, but for myself, and I think you made a post about this too. I'm very cognizant now more than in the beginning about how the content that I create may be perceived by people on a different journey with this condition,
Mhm.
especially since I moved over to Facebook. Facebook is clearly a very much older
It's an older crowd.
Older. Yeah.
demographic,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be insensitive to them. But the fact of the matter is, this is forever what I do online is my experience.
Hmm.
And as they say, you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one person with Parkinson's.
Mhm.
And so I wonder sometimes, though, like how some of this is going to age. Like, how you get those Facebook memories from
Yeah.
like 10 years ago, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so skinny, but I thought I was fat. Or I look so much better than and sometimes I look back at it and I'm like, so I do worry about that. Like, if I'm gonna be like 80 years old and seeing myself like hula hooping, and I'm just gonna be like, what was I thinking? Or if I'm gonna be like, yeah,
No, I
man,
mean,
those were some good times.
that's as we all age, right? One of the things that I've learned now, you know, not just from my own experiences, but from my dad and her parents when they were still here, is that people are gonna age. And no matter what, you're gonna look back in your youth and you're gonna a couple of things you could that people might do is you can compare yourself to your youth, or you can understand that people are going to age and that Michael Jordan is not going to be MVP if he comes back to the league, right? Mike Tyson is not going to knock out the current world champion. He can kick the crap out of Jake Paul, you know, but he's not going to fight someone, you know, and that matches his prime in his prime. It's just not going to happen, right? The sooner we can let go of that, the sooner that we can understand that wherever we are today, right, that could be your baseline. And if you're living with a degenerative disease and you can stay at that baseline, that's winning because the disease is progressing. And if you can stay right about where you are with certain things, then that's winning. But you know, at the same time, you understand that you don't compare yourself to your younger self.
I, I I'll say this. One of the things on my Facebook feed that is it hurts me is when I see videos pop up from like you were getting at Esther from like the reminder of what happened 5, 10 years ago. And then it shows me the condition that my wife was in then and the condition I was in then. And then I look at us now and how far I've aged myself and how much weight I've gained and how far along she's come. And then it reminds me, and I've made comments about this in some of my posts, like do the thing now. There's a lot of folks that are in this Parkinson's world that are like chasing the cure and chasing the magic widget that'll make me better, and you're wasting time and money on things that aren't going to work anyway, when you could spend that money to go on a ski trip while you can still ski, or go on a hiking trip with your family while you can still hike, so that the memories that pop up in your Facebook feed are memories of, yeah, we were on the top of that peak, or yeah, we went surfing that day. And if you haven't noticed, I changed guests. This is my son Christian.
Hey, Christian.
Hi,
Hi.
Christian.
He just got off of work. He works at an auto shop down the street. So you know who Jimmy is.
Yep, I've seen him before.
So if you guys got questions for a kid, now's your chance.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you guys and for your kids.
Mhm.
Do you ever feel like your parents talk about Parkinson's too much or made it too much of a part of your lives?
I would have to answer that question as if I would have to answer that question as if I was about maybe 10. I would say when I was younger, it was introduced to me to a level where I didn't really understand it and it stressed me out when I was young. Um, but for the most part, the level that of Parkinson's that she was having at the time wasn't as significant, so it was more understandable for me. But there were definitely some things that when my mom needed me to help her out with, I was just completely confused. But that was only when I was probably like from 7 to 10 years old.
Like that, he always shares the story about the time she was driving the car. We lived on the base at the time, on the Air Force base, and she like wasn't able to drive straight, and actually kind of veered and hit the side of where the gate guard was taking IDs. And the gate guards, fortunately, at that time knew us and knew my wife and knew she had an illness. But like, if they didn't know, they would have thought she was a drunk driver, and that could have been a whole different scenario. Luckily,
Mhm.
they followed her home, and I remember him calling me. I was on a work trip, and he was pretty distraught about it. And he's like, "Dad, Mom can't drive anymore. We can't let her drive anymore." And that was a defining moment for him, because she was the one that was taking him to all the school events. And it was a defining moment for me when I started realizing maybe my work isn't my priority anymore, and I need to rethink how I approach my career, so that I can be more available for her, and more importantly, the kids as well.
No, that's very valid. Hey, Christian, I got a question for you. Um,
How many pull-ups can you do?
no, my question is related to, you know, your level of knowledge into your mom's condition.
Mhm.
Okay. And I guess the what I'm trying to ask you is, do you feel like you are a Parkinson's expert?
No. I would say no because honestly, I even had a recent experience where my dad was telling me, "Hey, buddy, come check out this dyskinesia," and I've seen it for a long time. Or there's been times where I've just been sitting on the couch by myself, even recently, and I think I know a lot, but then I'll just look at mom and I'm like, "What are you doing? I haven't seen this before," and
Hmm.
I'm just like, "Wow, it's been 10 years, and it's just new dyskinesia that I see every day, new different little things that can pop up every day, and then even little things like there was a point in my life where I realized mom can run, but she can't walk, and
Yeah.
it's just like you learn new things every day, really.
He discovered, it was a while back, that, well, hey, he's like, Dad, check this out. She can walk backwards really
Yeah.
good, but she can't walk forwards.
Hmm.
So he has a, I mean, I think he has a better knowledge of Parkinson's disease than 80% of the Americans that don't know what it is.
Right.
But he's known it
No.
his whole life. His
Yeah,
whole
and
life.
and that's exactly what I expect. And I was just gonna comment that my kids, right? My kids can talk, talk to their friends or talk to other adults, about Parkinson's more than most adults can. I'm not saying that that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, right? But I think it's important because a lot of the people that reach out to me that who are family members of people with Parkinson's, and they always have questions. But one thing that really kind of grinds my gears, so to speak, right, is that a lot of these family members, don't really understand the disease itself to ask the questions that they're asking, you know.
Christian's been a very good source of medical information. So he knows more than he's alluding on to. So there's been
I'm
times where
sure.
we've had to end up in the hospital,
Yeah.
and he knows, like, he knows the drugs, he knows what dopamine does, he knows
Mhm.
all the different drugs that she's on, he knows her schedule, he can speak intelligently to, hey, she's wearing off and she needs to take her medicine now. So he, if I'm not around, and there we have before we got into the palliative care through hospice, we did end up having a lot of ER visits from falls and things, and he would be in the hospital before I would get there, and he was a very good source of information, to the point that, like, the docs and the nurses, like, hey, he gave me everything I needed.
That's great.
And
And
something I've done here at our home, because we do have a lot of folks that come in and out of the house, is I've printed out, like, it's almost like Trudy 101. Like, this is my wife. This is like a kind of a description of who she is, how old she is, and I always preface it with what her background is, because I mean, you saw her earlier at her stage in the disease. People look at her and they think differently. They don't know that she's probably IQ wise the smartest person in the room. You
yeah,
know, physically, her face, she can't express emotion, and sometimes they think she's not there, but in her mind, in her brain, she's still very much there, and she's a very intelligent woman. And so I start with, this is who she is as a human being, as a person, so they see her as a person and not a patient. And then I break down, these are her meds, this is what they're for, this is what she eats, and it's taped a magnet on the refrigerator door, so as we have different folks come in and out of the house, or if we get a new nurse, or actually tomorrow we're getting a new in-home health aide that we've never met before, this is like, read this first before you ask any questions, like, read this. And Christian can speak to everything on that.
yeah.
It's great.
What she's really good is that she does that for Mason. You know, and I think in one of our conversations online, I alluded to that, you know, all the organization comes from here, and all the disorganization comes from here.
I think
Um,
that would matter whether you're with disease or not. I think that's kind of the way it works with us, is the women
yeah,
are the foundation of the home, and
yeah,
we pretend as the men that we got it together, and we don't.
yeah. But she does that well for Mason. You know, and before we have like parties and things like that, we always make sure that we tell people who are coming, or we're going to a somewhere, that, you know, hey, you know what, this is what's going on with Mason. You know, because Mason is currently, he's currently nonverbal, right? But so people, when see him, people see him and he's not responding, right? They like, just like you said, they treat him differently because he's not responding. But I like to always tell people that, you know what, he will understand you. He understands exactly what's going on, and he can respond to you. You know, if you ask him yes or no questions, and things like that. But just don't talk to him like a puppy dog, and don't talk to
Yeah.
him like a little child, right? And because people used to, my parents, my dad used to talk to me like I'm a puppy dog.
Mhm.
My uncles and my aunts would talk to me like I'm a little child, and I was in my 40s at the time, right? So I completely understand that perspective, and then I also understand, because I understood how it made me felt. I always feel like it's important for us to send out a message to, you know, whoever we're going to see, whoever's coming into the home, or whoever we're going to, that, hey, this is what's going on with Mason, right? Encourage him, but let's not
Yeah.
bring up too much, you know, about how
Yeah,
things happen.
I hate it when people talk loud to my wife, like she
Yeah,
can't
I was
hear.
just gonna say that that happens to me when I'm like when I go in an
Yeah.
someplace in an off state, especially in medical offices.
Mhm.
All of a sudden they start talking to me louder. I'm like, I am not deaf. I have Parkinson's disease. That is so weird. But Jimmy, I have to ask, and I don't mean it in an impersonal way. But, we have a mutual friend, Gavin Mogan,
Yeah.
and has been talking to me about FND for ages. Like that was something that he brought to my attention when I was first on Twitter about how that particular neurological condition has shown us and provided many insights into neurodegeneration in general. And so, I mean, I don't want to come at you. Obviously, I also have questions about you as a care partner, but if you could maybe just educate me and our audience a little bit on that particular disorder.
You want to take this?
Sure. So FND is functional neurological disorder. Um, it's the best way to explain it, the way they talk about it is like think of a computer. All the hardware is working, but the software is not. It's sort of out of sorts, and it's miscommunicating with your brain. So the way your body functions is just miscommunicating or misfiring, and it could be caused by anything really constant. We think for Mason it was constant trauma. He was depressed for a little bit, or constant anxiety, and basically what we saw with Mason was that he basically lost autonomic control. So like what we think is automatic of like walking, all of a sudden he couldn't do it. He would like right now he can't really move his arms, and it's triggered like if he gets super stressed, he will lose function. So and it's difficult to get him back. And we have seen we've gone through intensive treatments where it is a combination of um, physical, occupational, and
Psycho.
psychotherapy, like that brings him back because during the summer, he was able to walk and have full use of his arms. So he was out of the wheelchair, he was using a walker, and we thought, okay, we're close and getting him back to normal. And it was going to be just a speech, and he was making strides towards that. And then what's difficult about FND is if you don't know what your triggers are and he has a stressful event, you can relapse. And so that's where we're at right now. Is I think there were a lot of changes that happened when we came back to Chicago, um, and he sort of relapsed, and we're trying to fight our way back. But the good thing in all this, and I would say as a care partner, like having gone through it with Jimmy, of going through with Parkinson's and then looking at FND, um, is that the way we approached it with Mason is like education. Like we were blinded, like we ignored Parkinson's for a very long time. With FND, that was not the case. We studied up on it. We looked up who are the experts, where can we go. Unfortunately, there's not much information on FND out there, and there's not a lot of experts. It is very much a trial and error kind of treatment. But it is what I've found is you need a lot of feedback from the person you're caring for. And I think if I were to look back, I didn't do that with Jimmy. I didn't ask for a lot of feedback. But now with Mason, it's sort of, does this work? What about this? What about this? And like you talked about, you have like sort of your 101. We have a Mason 101, but he actually created it. And he said, okay, when I have my triggers, this is how I want to be. This is what I want to calm myself down, or what I want to do, or where should you bring me? And when is it like bad?
So when
One of the
he
things they taught us is he would give us levels of anxiety. And one of the easy, like kind of the things we taught, he loves tornadoes, by the way. So he would do, I'm like, are you anxious? You know, are you EF1, EF2, and EF5 is we got to go to the hospital. It's going to the ER. So he gives us the levels. And so if it's like EF3, then okay, where can we go so that I can take you back down? So it was a way for us to manage. And I think that's the other key thing about being a care partner to somebody or caregiving is getting the input from who you're taking care of is how do we get them to a level of calm where they can feel safe. I think that's the key thing is bring them down to where they feel like they're in a safe place with you.
with his illness,
Mhm.
I'm not super familiar with it. So it my understanding is it comes and goes. Like he could
Mhm.
be completely normal, walk in, be fine, and then something can occur and he can go into these episodes
And it can happen in a snap of a finger.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
tornado imagery is interesting because from like a spiritual perspective, like there's chaos going on in his
Hmm.
mind,
Mhm.
and then there's chaos that spills out into his physical body. Have you guys read? I harp on this book all the time. The book, The Body Keeps the Score. So
I've heard of it. I've not.
read that book.
Yeah.
That is your homework. Do the audio book if you want, but
I literally
it
have it usually next to me, but I was like trying to clean off
Yeah,
my
I mean,
desk for
I
this.
am I'm learning that that your body stores a lot of trauma, and so like one of the things that like he doesn't like it, but I know it works really well with Mason is meditation and um like bringing him into that place, and I do it with him because it calms me down too. But I just see the physical change in him of
Yeah.
like the tenseness kind of goes away, and like when his body relaxes, it's so different. So I know like that's an effective way, and we know that that's one of the ways that we can bring him back or ground him back to where that anxiety
Yeah.
level
And just to
comes
be
down.
clear, it's not that I don't like it for him. I don't
And
like it for me.
he doesn't like it for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know why you
Um,
don't like it, Jimmy? Because it makes you have to think through your own thoughts.
Yeah,
I
and
do transcendental meditation. I was taught it at a military retreat for some of my PTSD from my service. And I can tell you when I don't do the meditation on a regular basis like I'm supposed to, I'm a real pain in the ass to be around. But it's hard at first because when you're in your own mind, you're in your own mind. And there's some shit in there that you don't want to talk to.
mhm.
There's some things in there that you don't want to rest with. You know, there's a I'm a big fan of shadow work, where we like have to look at the shadow self and be honest with the darkness that is within us because it's not evil. We're not full of evil thoughts. We're not. There's not like little devils in my mind. That's me. That's my own personality. And there's some darkness about myself that I have to just rest with and be okay with and have a conversation with. And that's what, for me, what meditation does is it allows me to think through, and I don't even have to think. I just let the images in my mind kind of go through what they need to go through and let my brain just kind of work its shit out on its own. And then as that movie plays in my head, I just learn to just kind of be okay with it and rest with it and just let it be. And I use the analogy of whitewater rapids a lot, where I'm just getting churned by the whitewater rapids, but eventually all that chaos will settle down, and I might go over a waterfall, and I end up in this beautiful, clean, calm water. So a meditation works, and Jimmy, you probably don't like it because you got some shit that's inside your head that you got to work out, brother.
No, I
no,
want to
it's
know
no.
why
Let
he
me tell
doesn't
you. Let
like
me tell you this. No, let me tell you
it.
this. So I think meditation comes in many different forms, right? What I don't like is sitting in the dark by myself and just talking to myself. I do have, I think, my form of meditation, which is in the gym,
Yeah,
right?
man.
When I'm in the gym, there a lot of people that work out with me. They will ask me times like, why are your eyes closed when you're doing, especially when we're doing like 1,000 reps or something, like literally and figuratively when we're doing something that's especially like when I was running a lot of marathons, like just when you're just going through rep after rep, right? And I just close my eyes and I do a lot of that. That's my meditation, right?
Yeah.
My body is still going, right? But my mind is that's where I calm myself down,
That's like
right?
me in surfing. I am most at peace with my life if I get to surf on a regular basis.
And that's exactly how it is in the gym for me, right? People are like, yeah, hey, you go to the gym too much. I'm like, well, that's where I regain my sanity, right? So, when all this started with Mason just over a year ago, and we moved to California for him to get treatment over the summer and the fall, and just staying out there, it was just me and Mason because Cheryl was still at home, my daughter was still at home, and we still had the home here to keep in Chicago, but it was just me and Mason out in California, and every day it was driving him to his treatments and then driving him back, right? So every day, every minute, we were thinking about his FND. We were talking about his FND, right? he was told that, hey, you know what, you need a break from your own FND and just like break break your thoughts. And so he'll keep himself busy with other activities when we're not in the clinic. And for me, it's the same thing, right? I needed to just get my own butt into the gym because it helps me break that connection between what was going on in reality and where my peace is,
I,
right?
I got a two-part question, one for you and one, and it's Cheryl, right?
Yes.
So I'll start with you, Jimmy. When you got the diagnosis for your son, and you guys realized whether you even had the diagnosis or not, but you realized there was something going on. Have you spoken about like your mindset change from holy crap, I'm going from this guy who is well known in the Parkinson's community to my role is not just Jimmy with Parkinson's, it's I'm a husband and I'm a father and now I'm also a caregiver. You know,
Yeah, almost immediately. It was the we were in the hospital when the diagnosis was given, and almost immediately I already, once the diagnosis was given, I mean, even leading up to that point, the weeks leading up to that point, I had Mason, in keeping his body moving. We had him being very active and things like that. I was preparing for what's to come because a lot of what he was dealing was very familiar, right? But once the diagnosis came down, uh, my immediate thought was, okay, it is time to change what I'm doing in the gym, right? Because now it's not about moving my body. Because up until this point, remember, like my entire goal in movement was how am I going to move my body over time, right? Now it's how am I going to move his body over time. So almost immediately, my entire training regimen shifted, changed, so that I can be a better support for him and his needs down the road. And that change came last January, and we're a year from that, and my training still reflects that today. So yeah,
you're fighting for him and you're also fighting for your own health. And then I'll kick that to Cheryl too, because I mean, what I've been watching from you, and I kind of did a quick deep dive on your TikTok stuff because honestly, we only learned about you until we saw you on Ninja Warrior. I'm like, holy crap, is I think the true warrior is sitting right next to you, dude. She's been behind
absolutely.
you every step of the way, and I know you know this. And she's not only been there for you and supporting what you're going through. Now she also has her child, and then my understanding is you also have a daughter as well, who's probably another layer of silent warrior that's going on. So like I gotta say it, man. I don't know how many people are gonna watch this, but the true ninja warrior is her and your daughter, that are truly there behind you guys. And Cheryl, I'm curious, like your thoughts on that. Like, how did that go? Like, man, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. You've been through some shit. Like, you've raised these two children. And Jimmy, you're an alpha, man. Like I know your type. Like I've worked in the special operations community, and you got that thing that we all know. And and behind every great man we all know is an even greater woman. And then I know there's a daughter buried in there as well. And what are you going through, Cheryl? And what's your daughter going through? And how are you guys staying mentally strong and stable?
Yeah, I mean, I could say for me it was a shock again. It was like, what, here we go again type of deal, but there's a little bit of here we go again, but now we also know better, right? So what I've learned in his diagnosis was that it helped no one when we went deep into depression. And so I think that was one of the things that I tried to trying to keep my head above water, stay afloat, is not go into myself into the deep anxiety. And like I think you mentioned it before, it's like you got to find your tribe. You got to find the people who you can talk to. And so to me it's Jimmy. It's for me, I've known him since we're high school sweethearts, so like he's my person that I can talk to, especially about Mason and all the fears and all that. But also like we've done this before, so to some extent like we know what we need to do. And so it's pulling our resources. And thankfully, within the Parkinson's community and FND, there's a little bit of a relationship of like it's a movement disorder. And we kind of pulled on that tenuous relation or tenuous connection to see who can help us with this. Who are the experts that have dealt with this? And I think when we were doing that, I felt better, or at least sanity wise, that helped me a lot more because we were doing something that was key to me. And then yeah, it's managing Mason's emotions and to making sure that he doesn't go into the deep end. But like you said, yeah, we're doing a balancing act with our daughter too. Um, she was at her the last year of her high school, so she's kind of going through the highs and last year of softball for her, and I really didn't want her to miss out on anything because of this very very heavy situation that we had with Mason. But I can tell you that she was such a trooper. I think we brought her in once we got the diagnosis. I wanted her to understand it. I wanted her to see like this is why what's happening with Mason and why he could be doing something that you don't understand.
That
Um,
that's
so
so. Like as I'm watching you speak, I'm like, good Lord, God, give them a fucking break already. Haven't they been through enough? But I also have learned through a lot of therapy, I was doing an interview yesterday. I haven't posted it yet with a gentleman who takes care of his mom with dementia, and then before that with Virginia Grant, who is a life coach for people who are caregivers. And we went into the spiritual side of things, and it's like it's bigger than us. There's something happening in this planet, in this world, in this universe that's bigger than us. There's a story behind the scenes that we just don't see yet. And like I think about that with my kid all the time, and maybe for your daughter as well, like their origin story when they're our age down the road. Like imagine the compassion that they're going to have for humanity because of what they've been through, and what it's going to make them be going forward. Like I think my son, I mean, he is a pain in the ass now, but I think he'd be a spoiled little shit if it wasn't for what he grew up around.
Yeah.
So just as you're talking, my heart was just like sinking, like God, give him a break. But then I got the same vibe of it's bigger than you. There's something happening here. And then with the it's FND, right? The illness. You said find your tribe, and I where is the tribe? If somebody watches this, that because we'll tag it or whatever. But like, where do they go? I've not. I don't. Where are those groups and associations to help people with it?
yeah, well, for FND, like I wouldn't say we have like a very good tribe there. It's been through Mason's treatment, his circle of therapists. That's who we go through in terms of understanding it better. And then there's certainly online. We don't have close family friends like we do in Parkinson's that are going through the same thing. But so the tribe for us is we go through his therapist and help us understand what's going on with Mason, and then also just Mason himself,
So when it
because
comes to F&D, the primary provider is mental health therapist.
mhm.
Right on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, it's not just for him, but she has been very helpful for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did so I've been to a bunch of different therapists, and I've said it before, like the form of therapy that clicked for me was it's called internal family systems, like that. And that's why I get into the darkness and rest in the darkness and have a conversation with it. And but that's what clicked for me. But I found this I went to this place down the street from our house. I said, I need somebody to talk to my kid who is as close to his mom's age. And so I found this therapist. She was a school teacher. She has kids about his age. And then I asked the same office, the lady that ran the place, and I go, I need your youngest therapist. I need somebody that can help me be in the mind of what my child is going through. And the form of we just made it up. Like he would go see his therapist, I would go see my therapist. We would talk about the things that we needed to talk about. There was things I shared that um, I didn't want him to know about, and there was things he shared that he didn't want her to know about. And then those two therapists would get behind the scenes and go, okay, how are we going to bring the two together? And it was like marriage counseling, really, but it was really a really strong foundational family therapy. And my relationship with him has been so much better. I'm a huge fan of it. You have to bring all, and not all therapists are the same. There's some really bad ones out there. You know, some of them
Mhm.
will string you along. Some of them, they're just not experienced at it. So definitely, if you got bad vibes, shop around, you'll find the right one. So it sounds like
Yeah,
that's what you guys are doing. Jimmy,
yeah,
you
and I say the same thing with people with Parkinson's is that if you're not vibing with your care team, you gotta flip them, you gotta switch them. You have to have somebody that's like-minded to work with you.
yeah,
So we
we've done that with
were,
neurologists. We didn't like a neurologist, we moved on till we
Yeah,
found one we liked.
yep.
Yeah.
so we had mentioned earlier about that post that Brent made about influencers in the fitness space. And Jimmy, you and I both know who that response post was from was our friend Adam in
Hmm.
Northern Ireland, which is a very, very dear friend of mine. And always inspires me is my fitness. And so I asked him specifically if he had a question for you, and this was his question. How do you manage your own needs whilst caring for someone else? Like, how do you prioritize? Because, of course, you want to be there for your children first and foremost, but at the same time, you can't pour from an empty cup. And just as a little bit of background, Adam has young onset Parkinson's, and he is the parent of a child with autism. And so he is in the same boat as being a care partner and someone with a care partner. So I think that's kind of a good question for all of you.
This, so for me, it's when right now my number one priority is Mason's needs, right? And it's very like every once in a while I get to sit down and I think about this. And when I am dealing with and watching my son struggle, I forget all the shits that I'm dealing with. Okay, because my instinct is I need to get him to a better spot, whatever it is, whether or not it's a better spot for the day, it's a better spot for the week, or just in that moment to bring him to lessen his level of anxiety or whatever it is that he's dealing with at that moment. That is my number one priority. And to be honest with you, a lot of times I forget that I have Parkinson's, and I will push, and unfortunately, I think is sometimes I push myself too hard to care for him, especially when we were out in California. That once he's finally settled down and he's in his room, then I have my crashing moment, right? And then I pay for it. I made a withdrawal. I borrowed against my battery, so to speak, right? So that I can make sure that he's in the right spot, and then I pay for it myself later, trying to recover, trying to get out, trying to come back from that, and I try to build that into my training time, and I always look at Mason's schedule for his schedule for the day where he has to be someplace, and I reserve that as my in Parkinson's we time our medication so that we can have our best performance, and we have a window on any given day of a couple of hours that, right? So I make sure that my window is there for him, right? But then I make sure that I get myself into again, remember my sanctuary is the gym, right? That's where I'm best at mentally. So when I get to the gym, I make sure that I get to the gym before that battery completely runs dry, right? And I give it whatever I can, and I work on whatever I need to do, and I do what I need to do to get things done. And that's kind of, and I take that time. And then even after a workout, if I'm like heavily symptomatic and I just need to sit there and rest before I can even drive back, right? As long as Mason is not in need or in any type of danger, I give myself the time to just sit back and reflect on what has happened and how I'm going to continue at this pace for next day and the day after and however long that is going to take. But I think there's just basically two parts in me. Is that number one is when I'm with Mason, Jimmy Choi is not Jimmy Choi with Parkinson's, right? But then once I'm sure that he is safe and I'm happy with where he's at, and I have my own time, then you know what? Now let's go back and find Jimmy with Parkinson's and see what he needs.
You compartmentalize. That's good. I like that you're able to do that. You're able to toggle between, I'm in dad mode right now. Okay, I'm in fill my own cup mode right now. I'm in husband mode right now. And that works. And your gym time is where you are able to reset yourself. Because if I don't, I'm not working out like I used to. I had a bad back, and I'm full of excuses as I want. Honestly, dude, lately I've been watching your stuff. I'm like, fuck, he's motivating me to get my ass in the gym. But like, for me, it is surfing. If I'm surfing on a regular basis, I'm actually a better husband. I'm a better father, and I'm a better caregiver because my emotions are regulated.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm gonna call you out on is you said it, like, sometimes you overdo it, taking care of your son, and then you poured too much out of your cup, and then you're broke. My wife does that too, and it pisses me off. And Cheryl, I'm betting there are times where you're like, I need you to stop. I need you to slow it down, because there's second and third order effects of you pushing yourself too hard, and we're going to pay for it in the end. Trudy will do that sometimes lately, because you saw her earlier. She's not as in the same shape she used to be, but and I'll just use an example. She wants to do the laundry, and she will go in there and she'll do the laundry, and she's doing well. And I'm like, all right, babe, I need you to stop now. She's like, nope, I'm good. I'm like, I know, but you're burning out, and we're gonna suffer the consequences. And it's a really tough thing for her, because I'm telling her to stop. She doesn't want to stop because she's feeling good, but I know that I'm gonna end up picking her up off the floor in about an hour and have to put her in the bed. And so I don't have you guys experienced that, or is that just me?
It depends. I think one of the things that with Jimmy, what I'm going to call early shenanigans, is when he was running a lot, I've learned to know what happens when he goes through something very extraneous, like when he did the marathon. Like, okay, then I know not to plan anything else. Um, and what I need to prepare for the rest of the time. So I think on bigger events, I can plan out to make sure he has his crash out moments.
So what I
Um,
just heard was, Brent, you're a pain in the ass. Let your wife do what she needs to do, and you need to change your own damn mindset. Let her do what she wants, and you mentally prepare yourself for the burnout.
no, 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 no. But what probably is difficult is on the day to day, because yeah, in the day to day, you just don't know, right? It could be so, like, it's easy to plan for the big events because we can schedule that out and block time off. But like what you said, like, yeah, laundry, and like stop doing it. Um, it's hard because it's stuff that we have to do. And so it's there's a little bit of making space. It was very difficult for me to watch it from LA, because we talk constantly. So always on FaceTime, and he'll call me and I'll know, oh, you extended yourself. I can see it in his face. You need to rest. You need to take a nap.
Does
You
he
know,
listen when you tell him to
no,
stop? Does
I
he listen?
no, I mean, he'll try. I think like it's the same thing as me telling him you need to drink more water. He's like, I did.
Yeah,
Coffee is water.
coffee is 99% water.
So,
So is
you did
whiskey.
it. Yeah. The only thing I ask him to do is when he's gonna crash out is just make sure he's in a safe spot. So, like, if he's gonna crash out, he's back at the condo, and things like that, that I can get help for him if it happens. Um, and then same thing with our daughter. She's, I think, knowing the good thing about with Jimmy, and knowing, like, watching him hit with his workouts, with his ninja, between me and Karina, the way he moves when he's off, we know right away, and we know when to stay close and when to, like, he's fine. Um, so we can easily tell, just like with your son, he probably has the same thing. He'll know right away. when to stay close and when to not. But Jimmy's good about keeping himself in a safe spot. And I always have plan B, C, D, kind of always in the back of the head. And maybe that's something, it's a care partner thing to do. It's like, if this happens, this is what I would do.
Yeah,
Things
I
like
call
that.
it we call it courses of action. I
Yeah.
use the term if and then. If this happens and this is with it, then I will do X. And with
Hmm.
what what you just taught me something. So I was kind of joking, but I'm not. Like, Trudy can't run marathons anymore. So her idea of running, she never really ran marathons. We hiked a lot, but we lived in Albuquerque for a while. Hiking was our thing and camping was our thing, and she just can't do that anymore. So like I can hear her right now. She kicked in. She's in there doing like an exercise on the TV, and then she'll go into cleaning mode, and that's like her version of a marathon. But I know how that's going to end in the like later tonight. She's going to crash, and I get mad and I tell her, stop, you need to stop. Like, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to, and I'm being selfish is what I am, because I don't want to have to deal with the back half of this. But what I heard from you, Cheryl, is you approach it differently. Let her do her thing. She's in it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I heard you say, let Jimmy do his thing, but you mentally prepare yourself for what I call the second and third order effects of what he is going to go through for that. And then instead of me getting pissed at my wife for not listening to me, what I heard from you is I need to change how I approach it. Like, okay, I need to mentally prepare that I'm going to have to like pick it up a little bit and deal with some of this the issues after the fact, because right now she's doing what she wants to do and she can, and I know she's going to burn out, but that's okay. I need to be okay with that. And I don't know if that's what you meant to say, but what I heard from you is Brent, I just changed my perspective of how I'm going to respond to it. Whereas I just get mad about it and get frustrated with her and go, please stop doing it. I make it about me and not what about her. And
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna
It's
have to
it's
tell my
where I
therapist
always say
about this
it's
one.
where do you spend your energy? Because fighting with him to stop it is just, he's gonna get upset, I'm gonna get upset. So it's sort of like, just let him do it. Part of it is also like, I also want to know up to where can he go. And one of the things, like if I'm with him, like you're really pushing it, pull it back, like that's one of the, don't overextend yourself. I think we've done that, like with your races. I'm like, don't do the 2 marathons. That was too much. That took too much out of you. That was like, not a good idea. But he sort of has to go through with it a little bit, like to see can he push it. In some cases, we've come up with some interesting ways to manage. One of the things like he wanted to do was his um, was your sub 5,
The bike ride?
the bike ride,
Uh-huh.
and he would tell me how his workouts would go, and we would problem solve it. It's sort of like, okay, well, I did it, but we dropped my meds, so that's a problem. What do we do? Or like I had my meds up in my arm over here, but then it kept shaking, and then it was powder by the time I needed to take it. And so not ideal. Like one of the things we came up with was double-sided tape on his
It's, I guess what,
bike bar and pulling off the meds one at a time. So it's not ideal, but like I think what I liked about that piece is the back and forth of us talking through what's happening and us kind of troubleshooting, like, why do you need to do it? Okay, you want to do it, like let's do it in a way that is in a
You're
safe way
supportive.
for
It's
you.
you
Yeah.
guys have a like it's a unity of effort. He has a goal in mind, and you're a classic example, Jimmy, of just how powerful the mind is over the body. Like, and we talked in the very beginning about David Goggins. I mean, that guy is like living proof of how the mind can overpower the body and you can control it. And then you've got this what I'm hearing is this very supportive wife, that it becomes a unity of effort of how you guys work together as a team to help you accomplish that goal, which is
I think I think, in controlled environments,
Mhm.
right? Absolutely. Because a lot of the things that I do is I do put myself into a controlled environment. But if we're out and about and, and things happen, like crap hits the fan, right? She's on her own because a lot of times I'm not even 100% there mentally with her,
Mm.
right? When things happen out and out there, just whatever. And I find myself doing the same thing with Mason, right? Is that, and you mentioned this earlier in the podcast, is that, like a lot of people are why not spend your time and energy on the now, on experiences, on things, right? So when Mason is having a good day and he's going around, right? I'm like, let him have his day, right? Let him have his day. Like we were out in California and he was moving, his arms are working. He has a strong core at the time. His legs were still shaky, but he's like, Dad, I really love going airsoft, which is, if you don't understand, if you guys don't know what airsofting is, I know you do,
Ah, hell
but
yeah.
for Esther, it's like paintballing, right? But without the paint, it's just like BBs. He loved doing airsoft, so I took him to airsofting in his wheelchair, and I would push him, right? But at the end of every game, every round, I just saw his face, like how happy he is. And I told Cheryl, I called Cheryl, and I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want. I just in case Mason can hear me, I don't want to do this. I don't want to push him in this wheelchair because I'm doing all the work, right? And I'm getting blown out at the end of this, and I still got to drive him all the way back home into our condo, get him situated. And if anything happens, that's on me, right? But when you turn around and you see the look on his face, I'm like, fuck it, let him do it, let him enjoy it. Yeah,
That's
I'm gonna have to pay for it,
that's
but
all. I mean, living in the now. Another, I love books. The Power of Now by Eckhart
yeah,
Tolle. Have you guys read that one? It's a
Yeah.
great book. It's living in the now, not worrying about the future, not dwelling on the past, and just living in the moment. And that's pretty badass. For Christian, the thing that clicked with him, that changed his mindset and made him a better kid, was jujitsu. He
yeah,
got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. There's a really good gym down the street, Muay Thai kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. It's an MMA gym, and that has helped him a lot with dealing with. Now his coach keeps trying to get me in there with him, and me us doing that together.
hmm
My body can't do it, but our thing is we go surfing together. We
yeah,
that's our thing. And yeah, man, I keep I can't imagine like the going switching gears from the I'm the one with an illness to now you're not the priority anymore, dude. Like your priority is your kid, and it's very clear to me that that's your priority of work. Is my son, y'all's son, is your number one priority now, and that to me is pretty badass that you're putting his needs forward. But then there's the reality of, at some point, as he grows older and your disease progresses, like, I don't know the answers to this, but and I guess we'll figure it out as you go in
yeah.
live in the now of how you'll adjust your approach to his needs and your needs. And I think, Cheryl, that's where your superpower is really going to show through.
So I wrote one question that I wanted to ask you myself based on another interview that I saw you sharing again about, how your training and your experiences with Parkinson's, you've been able to sort of transfer over to helping him. And that question is, what has he taught you?
Mason, Mason has taught me to be more centered in terms of how I view his own journey with the disease and my own. And what I mean by that is, you guys can probably tell from what Cheryl has said and what my online presence is showing you. It's go 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 gas. Pedal to the metal type of attitude, right? But what Mason has taught me is that, you know what? Sometimes going three-quarters the speed is just as great as going pedal to the metal. And it's okay. You don't always have to be the fastest. You don't always have to be, uh, putting in a 1,000% effort all the time, right? Sometimes you just gotta step it back a little bit, slow things down, get a better understanding of exactly what's going on and what we're dealing with, so that in cases of emergencies and when things do come up, I can still hit, you know, the pedal to the metal, right? But if I slow things down and really, it's kind of like practice, right? When you do things reps over and over again, you slow things down and you really break down what's happening and you understand what's going on. It's going to really help. Is that will translate it over into, you know, situations of now is the need, now is the time in emergency situations. So I think Mason has helped me pull back a little bit on that because I've pushed him and I've pushed him to the point where you know, he's like, you're gonna break me, right? And then, you know, now it's I let him push himself to the point where he feels he's gonna break, I'm okay with that. I don't have to continue to push him beyond his own limits, you know, like I used to do for my own. I still do for myself, but I don't think I do it
I say
nearly.
it all the time. When we die, when we die, nobody's going to give a shit what we did for a living. Our kids are not going to care what we did for ourselves. They're going to care what they did for them.
Hmm.
Like on our final day when my sons are standing over my gravestone, they're going to remember is what I did for them.
Right.
And I live by that. And it sounds like that's what you're doing is you're switching gears from, Jimmy Choi, the American Ninja Warrior Parkinson's, like, the David Goggins of Parkinson's, to now I'm the father of this kid who needs me, and you've changed your priorities, which is phenomenal. And Cheryl, of course, you're right there, unity of effort, supporting both of them all the way through it. That's pretty freaking amazing, if you ask me. So,
Yeah, and then, you know, at the same time, I think we also we try to do our best that we don't forget our daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know, we support her with whatever it is that she needs, and you know, she's off to college right now. You know, we try to talk to her every night. We try to stay involved with whatever it is that she's dealing with, all her friends, trying to know her friends, and she's playing softball in college. And I told her I'm not missing a game.
nice.
If I got to drag Mason along with
Mhm.
me, and we're dragging Mason back to California for a couple of reasons. Number one, his treatment is there. His most effective treatment we've gotten so far is there, so we're gonna go back. But at the same time, you know, while we're out there, we're
Right
gonna
there to cheer
we're
on.
gonna we're gonna cheer on my daughter, and we're gonna support her, and we're gonna give her all the support that we possibly can, just so that she doesn't feel like she's not seen.
Trudy brought this up early in the disease because, like I said before, her background is child development, early child development. And she used to say to me, even today, she's like, you could have five different kids grow up in the same household, and all five of them are going to have very different childhoods and very different experiences. And our older son, Mateo, I don't talk much about him. He had a very different experience growing up because he was much older and he got to have the good times with mom and didn't see some of the stuff that Christian had to see. And so his approach to life is very different than Christian's approach to life. And so I used to try to treat them both equally and talk to them both the same way. And I learned through trial and error that it doesn't work that way. And he's my oldest. He went off to college. He now works. He's like 3 hours away, and I spend a lot of energy on Christian because he's still in the house. But you're right, like we don't forget about him, and we do our check-ins, and it's just a different. We approach each other differently than we do with our youngest son. And when it comes to the raising children, I've always just done what Trudy told me to do. She truly is the expert at it, and it's worked so far.
Wouldn't it be just such a better world if they all just did what their wives told them to do?
I'm gonna
That is
cut.
actually what this
I'm
is.
gonna
That's the
edit all
title
that.
of this painting. It's a better world.
Be a whole new world.
I'm cutting all that out.
Damn you, and you're only the one editing this stuff.
We've been
And now I
talking
have to
for.
go. Now I have to go find out who David Goggins is.
Oh,
How do you
yeah,
not know who he
you won't have
is?
to look hard. You won't have to look too
Yeah,
hard. You'll.
Have
he's
you met him,
intense. He's
Jimmy? Have
intense.
you met the guy? I figured you might cross paths with him.
I haven't met David yet. No,
You
I
and
would
him are
like
the
to.
same mindset. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
have you read his book?
I
Hope.
have. Yeah, it can't hurt me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm the white guy who can tread water that he talks about in the first book.
All right.
So, like, he didn't swim so good, but he was a
Yeah.
badass on land.
Yeah.
I reached out to him after I read his first book and said, "Hey, man, I don't know if you remember me or not, because we were only like around each other for about 5 weeks." He goes, "The
Right.
name sounds really familiar, but I gave that book to my son Christian. He was really going through some hard times at the time, and I'm like, look, buddy, your mind is more powerful than you can imagine, and here's a great read on it. If you don't believe me, read this book." And so you
Mm.
and him have a very similar, like, I mean, that's what you, regardless of your Parkinson's disease, I think your story is to show the world that, okay, cool, I have Parkinson's disease, but I think what your real story is you're showing humanity, like, hey, man, your mind can really overcome a lot of things if you just really do put yourself through it. And what's cool, I mean, if you could put a positive spin on what's going on with your son, is it's just one more chapter of this story that the both of you are going through, of just how powerful the mind can be if we, one, overcome it with the physical challenges, and two, overcome it with the compassion that you have for your son, and the I guess the teamwork that the two of you have together as a couple. Like, it's like, man, I think y'all's story is like, it's no longer about Jimmy Choi or Choi anymore. The story is this family, and that's the true, like, when they make the movie about you guys, like, I think the Parkinson's part's like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then the happy ending is the family itself, which I think is incredible. Like, that's the testament that I think you guys are.
Thank you.
But that's
Thank you.
all. That's all on her. It's
No, no.
Yeah, we know, but I'm gonna cut all that out. Like, that's all leaving in.
one of the reasons I reached out, as I said, is that I think what you're doing is important. So I just want to encourage you to keep that going.
I
Um,
appreciate that. We were
you
We
can
wondering,
call
appreciate
out.
we
You
our
can
first
call
one, the
out.
very first quote of our very first podcast was, "This is a bad idea."
And I said,
because
you can call out, quote unquote fitness influencers all the time, and it's all good. Because like I said, I understand it from both sides.
Yeah.
But whatever is frustrating you, whatever is inspiring you, it's your platform, man. Call it out, and I think as long as you're being real, then no one has anything else to say.
What I'm learning from the caregiving side of things is just how many spouses are going through the same thing I'm going through. I get a lot of thank you for saying the thing out loud. I have a lot of followers that just they ghost follow, and then but they'll hit me with a direct message.
Yeah.
The other thing from the caregiving community is what I'm learning is just how many. I mean, I there the statistic is 63 million Americans are caring for somebody. And of those 63 million Americans, about half of them are men, that are caregivers as well. And so there's this other, faction of male caregivers that don't speak up and don't say what they're going through. I think I'm one of the few that does it. But what I found is how many of them are reaching out to me saying, "Hey, man, I'm going through it too." And then when it comes to the Parkinson's community, the spouses, especially the ones that are dealing with like the older generation of Parkinson's, the frustration that they live with. I have an uncle who his wife died, not from, nobody dies from Parkinson's, they die with it,
Mhm.
and he really struggled the last few years of their disease process. And he tells me, he's like, everything you're saying I went through. And so I do catch a little bit of hate. I've had a lot of people with Parkinson's reach out to me and say, you're making me feel bad about what my disease is, and like I'm a burden. And I have to tell them, I'm like, I'm sorry that's the way you feel. I'm not trying to do that. But what I'm trying to do is let you understand that the people who care for you are going through shit too. And if you're not talking to your husband or your wife about what they are going through, then it's not helpful. Because what do we end up doing is what I was doing in the beginning, was bottling up these emotions about what I was dealing with and not telling anybody. And dude, I ended up in the ER with a panic attack.
Mhm.
And I they put me on antidepressants, and those antidepressants literally I wanted to kill myself from them. And so now that I've started doing what I'm doing here, Esther found me and she's like, "Who's this asshole? I want to talk to him." And honestly, in the last few months, and we've only, I don't even know how long we're not even a year into this, and I'm doing better. Like, my wife, I am like, "Hey, do you want me to keep doing this?" And she's like, "Yes." She tells me, like, "You're a better person since you started doing this." And so that's
well, I mean, let's get real about the bullshit then. So, what I saw, the first post that I saw, Brent, that really, really resonated with me was your post about all of these fake cures and devices and gimmicks and protocols and people out there, selling stuff that is taking advantage of us. And, he said, and I'd never thought about it from the care partner perspective. Again, I was just looking at myself and thinking, like, well, I'm smart, I'm educated, I would never fall for any of this stuff. And then my DMs and my comments started filling up with all of this crap. And I saw friends of mine, you know, falling for these sometimes, really expensive treatment centers or gadgets or whatever. And he said that told me all the stuff that he had thrown money away in. And that's something to me that I feel like I can have a little bit of impact with
Mhm.
from my platform of just saying, like, look, and I can't imagine, and I won't speak for you, Jimmy, but for myself, how frustrating it is that for the last 3 years of my life, I've educated myself, tried to learn from the experts, tried to learn from people that have had this disease for decades. And at the end of that road was exercise, exercise, mindset, hard work, consistency, nutrition, physical therapy, speech therapy, having a good care team, all of doing things that you love, all of these kind of things, getting a therapist. And I talk about it till my head explodes. And then my first comment will inevitably be, have you heard about blah, blah, blah? And I'm
Mhm.
like, how have you been doing this for all these years? And you still don't open up your comments and be like, I'm out. Like I have days like that where I'm just like, I'm out. I done told you guys like what and literally showed you what I'm able to do. I'm in better shape physically and mentally today than I was before Parkinson's
Yeah.
Mhm.
and happier and more content. But it breaks my heart for our community that this is still going on. And I don't see anybody talking about it but me. And then the occasional spicy Jimmy post, which I love when spicy Jimmy goes out and just shuts it down like with the mic drop. And then I feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like there isn't probably anybody out there like magnesiuming their way out of Parkinson's.
Yeah, and because they want the quick the quick cure or the quick fix, and all the stuff they talked about that does work, it takes time and it takes dedication and discipline and all that. And I think that's what's difficult, for the rest of the community to get going on. It's hard to build momentum from that, and it's also it's not an overnight thing. I think people look at him and say, well, I'm young. It's like, yeah, he was young too, and he was overweight, and it took years, lots of years to get him to where he's at. There isn't a pill that you could take that makes it all go away. Unfortunately, there's maybe a pill that can mitigate or help manage the symptoms for a little bit, for part of the time, but not all the time. So it's a combination of a lot of things to make it work.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money for like miracle cures, or because we lived in New Mexico at the time, and she chased a lot of, and I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get people hate, like people trying to liable or slander, but they didn't work. And then I look back on it, and I'm like, God, I just like these platforms didn't exist then. Like there wasn't a platform for us to. The only person that was talking online was Heather Kennedy, and we spent a lot of money on stuff that man, I could have spent that time and energy and money making memories. Making memories that we can't make now because she physically can't do some of the things that we used to do. So it's it's been a hell of a journey. And I'll say this too, from a caregiving perspective, I'm a better husband to my wife now than I was before. And I don't know, I said it recently in a different interview with somebody. One of the things I asked my wife a while back, like, where do you think we would be today if you didn't get sick? And her response was, it was painful. She said, we'd probably be divorced.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what? And what she was getting after is the personality and the person. I don't know if you guys know this, but like, I'm a bit abrasive, but the personality that I was and the way that we were, or I was, she's like, I think we would have gotten divorced. Like she was like, I think I would have gotten tired of your shit, and we wouldn't be together. And what this experience has done for our relationship has allowed me to show some humanity and some compassion, and it's strengthened our relationship. I think I'm a better parent because of it. So there's definitely some goodness. That's what I've been learning with one of these coaches, is like trying to see the goodness in everything, trying to see the positive in everything. And but like my most watched video is me going in my car, sitting down and going, fuck. And it was a real emotion. Like, it was a frustrating moment. And then I just said, that's what it feels like to be a caregiver. Now you know. It's my most watched video.
That's what it feels like to be an influencer too, just so you know. Screaming in your car, fuck.
I have one last question, and this is for, I guess, all of you. Esther, I'll start with you. If your kids could tell the story of this season someday, what do you hope they will say you did right?
Well, I've always said that I want my kids to be proud of me. I think we all want that as parents. I want them to think that I tried to um, leave the Parkinson's community and the world a little bit better than how I found it. And I my daughter recently asked me to speak at her school, and when it was over, she said that, "Mom, my friends think you're cool." Even with your Parkinson's. And like, that was like, I honestly can't imagine ever achieving anything greater than that, because it was just like such a full circle moment, because I didn't want to be that weird mom with Parkinson's, and I am that weird mom with Parkinson's, but they still are happy and they still love me. So that's pretty much, I peaked too soon, guys.
Jimmy, I'll ask you, if your kids can tell this, like in the future, if your kids could tell the story of this season of life, what are they going to say that dad did right?
I hope they say, Dad was there for me, and that they individually say that, so that Mason will say, my dad was there for me, and Karina will also say, my dad was there for me, not my dad was there for Mason, or not Mason saying my dad was there for Karina, or whatever. It's that individually. If you ask them individually in two separate rooms, they would both say, my dad was there for me.
Cheryl, what are the kids going to say about what mom did right in this season of life?
What mom did right. My mom tried to make it normal on how fun and weird life can be, and just keep it going. I think that's what I want them to take away, and that they can do hard things. I think they've seen me go through, seen their dad go through hard things, but we still get it done.
Yeah,
Still find a way to move forward.
Cheryl, I gotta say, like, I'm like I said, I'm new to y'all's story, but Jimmy, you're an amazing dude. But brother, that one sitting right next to you, man. Cheryl, I'm glad that I don't know how, if you've done other podcast or public speaking or not, but like your story matters too. Speaking as the caregiver, and then your kids, man, like, what you're dealing with Mason, for both of you, that's amazing. I've never had to care for a sick child. I've worked in hospitals where I've, been the medic to a sick child, and I've seen the pain in the parent's face. And then the fact that you guys recognize that there's not just the one child, there's two. That's pretty incredible. So I don't know what else to add here. I don't
We
even
can
know.
do hard things. I don't think it gets better than that.
Yeah, I don't even know how to close this. Like
I
this has been
think
a
I
this has
think
been
that we'll just leave it at that. Thank you so very much. It was certainly a pleasure meeting you. And now I can name drop that I met Jimmy Choi, kind of, and his beautiful wife, who is probably, I suspect, a little like my husband in that he has very little desire to be speaking publicly as much as I am.
She's
I let him have the spotlight. It's
she's
okay.
made her rounds. She's made her
Yeah.
rounds as well. But our lives are in a way it's I think at this point it's not always we're trying to make it so that it's not always about Parkinson's.
Yeah. That's it, dude. That's for sure. Because like, people in your community see me as the caregiver to a Parkinson's patients, but there's this is a family story that you guys have. This is a beautiful love story that you guys have going on here. So I don't know how to close this other than, dude, I appreciate you. Like, when honestly, when you first reached out to us, I'm like, oh, this is a bot. Like, this is a fake. I was gonna
He's
talk
like
shit.
another
I was
fake account. He's like, I'm gonna spam him.
Cheryl, thank you for so much for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much.
I'm glad you
Sure.
guys
Thank you.
got, even though it was briefly, that you got a chance to see and meet Trudy. Her disease is a little bit further down the road, and that you met Christian. And thank you, dude. Thank you so much about bringing up what's going on with your son. That's an incredible story to tell as well. And I'm sure there's a whole group of people out there that would like to learn more about it because they're dealing with it too. And Esther, as always, thanks for going. I want to talk to this guy.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you
Enjoy
guys. It's
enjoy
really
the
a
rest of your
pleasure meeting you
weekend.
guys.
And best of wishes to you all.